Have you ever felt that in your darkest emotional moments, you were not alone? Not the kind of loneliness one feels from being unloved or unseen, but a strange, pressing presence, as if something invisible was watching, feeding, or simply waiting. Throughout history, mystics, seers, and occult practitioners have warned of a secret. That human emotion, especially when intense, does not simply radiate into empty space. It summons. In the invisible web of subtle energies that surrounds our world, emotion is not just an internal experience. It is a vibration, a signal, a beacon. And just as light draws moths in the night, your emotional frequency can attract beings you cannot see. Some call them astral parasites. Others refer to them as thought forms, egregores, or ancient intelligences. They do not wear flesh. They do not speak in language. But they are drawn to the flavors of our emotional energy, particularly the strong ones: grief, rage, fear, ecstasy. Why? Because emotion is life force in motion. It is the closest thing to spiritual food in certain dimensions. And just as certain animals track scent or sound, these entities track feeling. But this is not a tale of horror. This is a story of awareness. Because once you understand the mechanics of emotion, you begin to see the architecture of influence all around you, and how to protect your own inner realm. In this video, we will journey through forgotten esoteric teachings, reveal why ancient texts warned of hungry spirits and emotional vampirism. And most importantly, we will explore how to recognize and reclaim your emotional sovereignty. This is not just about fear. This is about power, the power to know what moves through you, and to master the invisible tides that few dare to speak of. Are you ready to look beyond the veil? Long before modern psychology gave language to emotion, the ancient world held a far more mystical view of feeling. In the hidden chambers of Egyptian temples, initiates were taught that emotion was not just human, it was elemental. Each feeling was thought to correspond with a current in the unseen world. Anger stirred Mars-like currents. Joy aligned with solar radiance. Sorrow with the lunar tides. Emotion was energy, and energy was influence. In Tibetan Buddhism, the concept of tulpas, mental constructs that can take on independent life, was explored in great depth. Practitioners were warned that if an emotion or thought was fed long enough, it could become an entity of its own, capable of exerting influence beyond the mind that birthed it. Some of these beings were said to feed on the very emotions that sustained them. The Hermetic texts speak of pneumatic currents, breath-like forces that flow through the astral realms. These currents respond to intention, but also to unchecked emotion. In the Corpus Hermeticum, it is written that those who are tossed by passion are like ships without anchors, and spirits without form shall cling to them. Here we find the first whisper of a truth too unsettling for most to consider. Emotion creates vulnerability when unmastered. In early Christian Gnostic writings, the archons were said to thrive in lower vibrational realms, stirred and fed by human suffering. They were not necessarily evil in the cartoonish sense, but they benefited from chaos. To the Gnostics, salvation came through gnosis, or direct knowing, which included the discernment of what emotions were truly yours and which had been seeded from without. Even in indigenous traditions around the world, from the shamanic practices of the Amazon to the folk mysticism of Eastern Europe, there exists the notion of energy feeders. Sometimes these are nature spirits or tricksters, sometimes ancestral beings out of balance, and sometimes shadowy forces that move like wind between worlds. What unites all these traditions is a single chilling insight. Emotion is energy. Energy is nourishment. And where nourishment flows, so too do feeders. But not all emotions attract the same presence. Some uplift, transmute, protect. Others open the gates to things best left sleeping. This is why the ancients placed such importance on emotional alchemy, the inner science of transforming base feelings into higher awareness. Because if you do not work with your emotions consciously, something else might be working with them for you. The magnetic nature of emotion. Imagine the human emotional body as a radiant field, an aura constantly pulsing with invisible frequencies. Each thought you think, each feeling you feel, sends out vibrations like ripples on water. But what few realize is that these ripples don't vanish. In certain unseen layers of reality, they act more like fragrance than waves send trails in an etheric ecosystem. Now picture this: in the same way bees are drawn to nectar or wolves to the scent of prey, non-physical beings, call them spirits, entities, or energetic intelligences, can be drawn to particular frequencies that match their nature. They are not always hostile. Some are simply hungry. Some are curious. But many, as ancient esoteric texts describe, are opportunistic. These entities exist in what mystics call the astral plane, a realm shaped not by matter, but by emotion and imagination. It is a world of mirrors and magnifiers. Whatever you emit emotionally expands there. Rage becomes thunder. Grief becomes fog. Lust becomes flame. Now here's the key: the stronger your emotional output, the more visible and tangible you become in that realm. You glow. In a moment of overwhelming anger, despair, or ecstasy, your aura pulses like a flare. And just as a flare draws attention in the night sky, your emotional flare can attract beings that feed on or resonate with that energy. Some of these beings are known in esoteric literature as larvae, from the Latin for ghost masks, parasitic astral forms that cling to energy fields. Egregores, thought forms empowered by collective emotional investment. Elementals, nature-based spirits that react strongly to human vibration, often in unpredictable ways. Unbound shadows, fragments of energy from past traumas, deaths, or curses that linger in the astral fog. The common thread? They're drawn not to logic, but to emotion. And the more unconscious or repetitive the emotion, the more likely it is to create a loop, a feeding ground. Take, for example, someone caught in a spiral of resentment. The longer they dwell there, the more energy they emit that matches lower astral currents. The presence of an entity might amplify that emotion, making it feel endless, disproportionate, or compulsive, thus ensuring the cycle continues. This is not superstition. It is a spiritual ecology. Just as decaying matter draws certain bacteria, and still water breeds mosquitoes, unprocessed emotional energy invites response in the astral domain. But not all emotion is dangerous. The difference lies in awareness and intent. Grief, when held with presence, becomes a bridge to healing. Anger, when purified, becomes righteous fire. But when ignored, repressed, or indulged unconsciously, emotion becomes bait. That's the paradox of feeling deeply. It opens us to life, and it also opens doors. The energetics of influence and possession. So if emotion acts as a signal and some unseen beings are drawn to it, what happens when they respond? In the writings of medieval mystics and Renaissance occultists, there's a recurring warning. What you do not master will master you. Emotion is not simply a force within us. It is a portal, and in certain conditions, it becomes a gateway for influence. Here's how it works. When a person is in a highly charged emotional state, especially when the emotion is reactive, unconscious, or repetitive, their subtle body becomes porous. Like an open door with no guard, the aura, which normally serves as a boundary, weakens and fluctuates. And just like a draft slipping through a cracked window, external influences can enter. At first, these influences may feel like intrusive thoughts. You're more irritable than usual. You feel sudden bursts of anxiety with no obvious source. Old wounds reawaken. Self-sabotaging impulses arise without clear cause. But over time, these impressions may intensify into what mystics once called overshadowing, where a subtle entity begins to impose its emotional frequency upon you. Not full possession in the Hollywood sense, but a sharing of space. A tether, a hook. This is why the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, is so crucial here. Just as bacteria thrive in wounds of the flesh, certain astral entities are drawn to unhealed emotional wounds. And here's the twist. Many of these beings don't come to attack in the traditional sense. They are drawn by resonance. Your grief may call to an echo of someone else's unresolved sorrow. Your rage may harmonize with an ancient current of injustice. And while some entities are parasitic in nature, others simply seek expression. A vehicle, a host, a means to continue their own unresolved path. This phenomenon is hinted at in countless spiritual traditions. In Hindu lore, Buddha spirits are said to linger around emotional ceremonies or graveyards drawn by the intense psychic charge. In Kabbalistic mysticism, clipped husks of impure energy attach themselves to the soul through misaligned desires and emotions. In Christian demonology, the sin of wrath, when indulged repeatedly, was said to open the door to infestation by spirits of violence or despair. In all these cases, the underlying pattern is the same. Emotion, when unconscious, becomes an opening. Now here's the subtle danger. These entities may amplify the very emotion that drew them to you. If it was sorrow, they deepen the sorrow. If it was rage, they twist it into violence. Not out of cruelty necessarily, but because they feed on frequency and survival demands continuity. This is how emotional loops are created. What starts as a passing feeling becomes a state, and then a story, and eventually a structure. Something that lives within your psyche and drains your vitality without your knowing. This is the real meaning behind the phrase giving your power away, not to people, but to invisible patterns that are not truly yours. But the solution is not to suppress emotion. Emotion is sacred, it is the raw fire of human experience. The solution is to become a guardian of your emotional field, to feel deeply with awareness, and to refuse entry to what does not serve your highest essence. In the next section, we'll explore practical methods to identify when something is feeding off your field, and how to cleanse, shield, and restore your energy so that your emotions remain your own and no one else's. Shield practical application. Reclaiming your emotional sovereignty. Now that we've explored the spiritual mechanics behind emotional attraction and unseen influence, let's turn to the most vital part of this teaching. What can you do about it? You are not powerless. In fact, the very beings drawn to your emotional energy recognize your potential power. That's why they're drawn to you in the first place. Your emotional body is a radiant engine of creative force, and when harmonized, it becomes impenetrable to unwanted interference. Here are 5 powerful techniques to protect, purify, and reclaim your emotional energy field. 1. The practice of emotional witnessing. Begin by observing your emotions without judgment. In meditation or quiet reflection, ask yourself, whose emotion is this? Is this truly mine, or is it something I've absorbed? When you feel a sudden shift in mood that seems out of place, pause and scan inward. The key is presence. When you become the observer, you interrupt the feeding loop. Analogy. Like a flame withdrawing its heat, attention disrupts the feeding pattern. Many entities cannot anchor themselves to conscious awareness. 2. Salt and smoke cleansing. These ancient tools weren't just symbolic. Salt, especially black or Himalayan, and sacred smokes like frankincense, Palo Santo, or sage can clear residual energies that cling to your aura. Stand barefoot, speak an intention aloud, and pass the smoke or saltwater mist over your body, especially around the heart, navel, and forehead, key points of energetic vulnerability. Do this particularly after emotionally charged experiences, arguments, grief, anxiety episodes, or even prolonged stress. 3. Mirror of light visualization. Close your eyes and imagine a radiant mirror surrounding your body, highly polished and luminous. It reflects outward anything that does not serve your essence. Each breath makes it more vibrant, more impenetrable. You are not trapped inside it. You are seen clearly, but nothing may enter without your permission. Use this especially in crowded or emotionally intense environments where projections and energy swirl unseen. 4. Energetic name calling. This comes from folk magic and shamanic lineages. If you suspect something has latched onto your emotional field, speak aloud, firmly but without fear. If you do not serve my highest good, you are commanded to leave now. Sound, intention, and will disrupt low vibration presences. You don't need to shout. You need to mean it. Do this before sleep or after intense emotional flashbacks. Combine it with breathwork to expel lingering residue. 5. Transmutation through ritual emotion. Do not suppress your emotions, ritualize them. Create a sacred space where you allow yourself to fully express grief, rage, or sorrow through movement, sound, writing, or symbolic burning. When you choose the space, the time, and the intention, you control the release, not the entity. Example, write out your emotion in raw, honest form. Then burn the paper while visualizing it transmuting into golden light. Repeat button signs you're being influenced. Sometimes subtle influence returns in cycles. Be alert for recurring emotional loops with no identifiable trigger, exhaustion after emotional release instead of relief, dream visitations or strange imagery during sleep, compulsive thoughts or moods that don't align with your usual self. These are not signs to fear, they are signs to pay attention. By integrating these practices into your daily spiritual hygiene, you not only shield yourself from unseen feeders, you begin to radiate with a clarity that repels what is false and attracts only that which aligns with your soul's path. In this way, your emotional body transforms from a chaotic signal into a sacred broadcast, one that declares, I am awake, I am sovereign, I feel with full power, and I belong only to myself. Compass conclusion. We often think of emotion as something fleeting, something that comes and goes like weather. But what if emotion is not just internal experience, but external influence as well? What if your anger is not only yours, your sorrow not wholly personal, your fear not purely organic? This is the hidden dimension that mystery schools and esoteric teachings have long guarded. Emotion is power, and power, if left unguarded, invites those who seek to use it. You've now seen how ancient mystics, from Gnostic sages to Hermetic philosophers, believe that certain beings in the unseen world are drawn to human emotion the way moths are drawn to flame. But unlike moths, some of these presences linger, feed, and even manipulate. Not to terrify, but to awaken you. Because once you become aware of this hidden dynamic, you step into the sacred role of guardian, not just of your body or mind, but of your emotional sovereignty. You reclaim your field. You transmute your emotions into fuel for growth. And most importantly, you begin to live as the mystics did. With clarity, with vigilance, with light. Let this teaching not just be something you understand intellectually, let it sink into your daily life. Pay attention to your emotional shifts. Clear your space. Name what does not belong. Reclaim what does. And above all, remember, your emotion is not a weakness. It is your signal, your power, your invitation to awaken.